Title: My spouse left me and fled with our newborn after delivery. Months later, she mocked me in court while demanding support payments. I'm jobless, so I'll keep draining you, she said as the room laughed. Asterisk, 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 but just as the judge was about to rule, I reached into my satchel and said, Your Honor, I have one more thing to present. Asterisk Chapter 1. The vacant cradle the night my son entered the world should have been my greatest joy. I stood beside the hospital cradle, gazing at him, so tiny, so flawless, his little hands opening and closing in sleep. I murmured vows to him, swearing to shield him always, to give him the life I never had. But when I glanced at the bed, something felt wrong. My wife wasn't watching him with affection. Her eyes were distant, icy. I brushed it off, blaming fatigue from labor. Then her words hit like a blow. You'll never be enough for us. I stood rooted to the spot. She turned to the wall, shutting her eyes, leaving me to comfort our infant alone. By morning, the cradle was empty. So was her bed. She had vanished. No message, no reason. Just gone. With my son. I called endlessly. I pleaded. I pounded on her relatives' doors. Silence. Weeks bled into agony, each day a fresh wound. Was my son safe? Did he even know his father? Or was he already growing up without me? Then, months later, a letter arrived. Not an apology, but a court summons. Chapter 2. The courtroom ridicule. The courtroom carried the faint scent of ink and aged wood. My pulse raced as I entered, clinging to the hope of seeing my son again. But when I saw her at the plaintiff's table, confidence radiating, my hope turned to dread. She looked stunning, clad in high-end attire I knew she couldn't afford alone. My son rested in her arms, grown now, but with the same soft cheeks I recalled. He gazed at me, curious yet unaware. When she spoke, her voice was steady, rehearsed. Your Honor, he deserted us. He has no income, no reliability. I'm unemployed, so I'll keep drawing from him. That's what support payments are for, right? The crowd burst into laughter. Her attorney smirked. My hands tightened beneath the table, every instinct urging me to stand and shout the truth. But I held back. Not yet. Her words were venom. I'd been searching, pleading, losing sleep, unraveling, while she played the victim. Spectators whispered, "Loser," under their breath. The judge seemed swayed by her act, his gaze lingering on her. The room tilted against me. Then, as the judge lifted his gavel to rule, I stood. My voice was even, my hands steady, as I reached into my satchel. Your Honor, I said, the room falling silent. I have one more thing to present. Every eye turned to me. Even my wife froze, her smirk fading. They thought they'd won. They didn't know what was coming. Chapter 3. The proof that shifted everything. The courtroom's silence was thick. The judge's gavel paused as he looked at me. I opened my satchel and pulled out a hefty folder, papers neatly organized, each stamped and authenticated. My attorney stepped forward, placing the first document before the judge. Your Honor, these are bank records showing multiple withdrawals from my client's account in the weeks after she left. She didn't flee because she was deserted. She fled after draining his funds. The crowd murmured. Her confident expression wavered. I pulled a USB drive from the folder and handed it to the clerk. And this, Your Honor, is footage from her mother's home. It captures her boasting about her plan to disgrace me in court. She said, "He'll pay for the rest of his days." The clerk inserted the drive. The screen lit up, and there she was, chuckling, wine glass in hand, gloating to her parents about ruining me. The crowd's laughter died. Silence now, heavy and damning. The judge leaned back, his face unreadable for a moment, then turned to my wife. Is this your voice? Your words? Her face paled. She stumbled over words, then fell silent. The room knew the truth. She'd come to court expecting to brand me a failure, to secure payments for her deceit. But with every document, every clip, the truth turned the tide against her. For the first time since she left, I wasn't the one under scrutiny. She was. Chapter 4. The ruling reverses. The judge tapped his pen on the desk, the sound reverberating through the hushed courtroom. He leaned forward, eyes locked on my wife. You entered this court claiming abandonment and need, yet the evidence reveals calculated deceit and financial theft. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She glanced at her attorney, who sat motionless, sweat on his brow. The crowd that had mocked me now watched her crumble. The judge's voice grew stern. Support payments are for the child's welfare, not to fund manipulation. Your actions are not only deplorable, but potentially criminal. He turned to me. Sir, your rights as a father will be upheld. As for custody, we will reassess with this evidence fully considered. My chest eased, relief flooding me for the first time in months. The truth was no longer buried beneath her lies. It stood clear, undeniable. Gasps echoed as the judge denied her support request pending an investigation into her conduct. Her smug supporters sat stunned. Even her parents shifted uneasily. My wife, who had entered so assured, now trembled. Her bravado had evaporated into desperate glances around the room, seeking allies. None came. The gavel fell. She thought she'd shame me, label me worthless, and walk away enriched. Instead, she left exposed, disgraced, and facing consequences she never foresaw. And I hadn't revealed my final piece yet. Chapter 5. The decisive strike. The gavel had struck, but I wasn't done. As the court prepared to adjourn, I reached into my satchel once more. My attorney handed the judge a final, thicker folder. Your Honor, before we close, there's additional evidence to consider. It detailed months of investigation, not just her siphoning funds, but her hidden accounts, extravagant purchases, and transactions with money she claimed she lacked. The judge's eyes narrowed as he scanned the pages. Photos of designer bags, hotel bills with another man's name, flights booked under false names. The crowd gasped. My wife shot to her feet, voice shaking. Those aren't mine. I was borrowing. But her excuses were lost in the courtroom's murmurs, each word burying her deeper. Her attorney edged away, distancing himself from her collapse. The judge's voice boomed. Not only is your request for support denied, but this court orders an immediate investigation into fraud and perjury. Custody will be reevaluated, with priority to the father. Her legs gave way. She sank into her seat, eyes brimming with tears, staring at me. The arrogance, the mockery, the laughter, all gone. She thought she'd ruin me, leave me as a ridiculed shell. But as the bailiff gathered the evidence and the judge's words rang out, it was clear, I hadn't just defended myself. I turned the trial into her undoing. And every time she looked at our son, she'd recall the day her lies crumbled. Chapter 6. The fallout and the truth. The ruling was the peak, but the real story unfolded in the weeks and months after. My wife's scheme was to portray herself as the struggling, abandoned mother. Instead, her arrogance cost her dearly. Financially, her accounts were frozen as fraud investigations deepened, stripping away her remaining credibility. Socially, the friends who jeered with her in court vanished, unwilling to be linked to her disgrace. Even her parents, once her staunchest allies, quietly withdrew. Legally, her perjury hearings and loss of trust in family court left her with little ground to stand on. The woman who planned to drain me forever was left with only debts and shame. For me, the burden of months of pain and humiliation lifted. Custody. The court granted shared custody, with strong indications of favoring me fully due to her misconduct. Holding my son again, feeling his small hand in mine, was the true triumph. Dignity, no longer the mocked failure. I was seen as a father who fought for his child, not a fool discarded. Peace. For the first time since that hospital night, I slept without grief tearing at me. She had sneered in court. I'm jobless, so I'll keep draining you. But in the end, it was she who paid, with her reputation, her stability, and the custody she wielded as a weapon. Epilogue. Years later, time proved the ultimate judge. Reputation. The video of her gloating and the court transcripts lingered. Every attempt to rebuild her image was haunted by her past. Finances, frozen accounts, and debts from her lavish habits led to ruin. No manipulation could erase her trail of deceit. Relationships, friends faded. Family stopped defending her. Even those who laughed in court abandoned her to avoid her scandal. She was left with the emptiness she once mocked. For you, life rebuilt stronger. Fatherhood. Regularly holding your son, watching him grow, knowing he'd never again be a pawn, gave you purpose. Perception. Once labeled a failure, you became a symbol of resilience. A father who fought lies with truth, not anger. Peace. No revenge or victory matched the quiet relief of looking in the mirror, knowing you'd won with integrity. As your son grew, he saw the truth himself. Children understand more than adults realize. He saw who provided stability, who showed up, who stood firm through chaos. One day, as a teenager, he said softly, "Dad, I know what really happened. I'm proud of you." Those words outweighed every courtroom victory. She once sneered, "I'm jobless, so I'll keep draining you." But years later, she was the one scraping by on pity and excuses while you raised your son, built a future, and lived free. The greatest revenge wasn't her downfall. It was your peace. Asterisk, was this justice deserved? Share your thoughts below. If you believe this outcome was fair, pass this story to someone who needs its strength, and follow Lauren's tales for more gripping stories of betrayal and triumph. Asterisk, because here, every lie faces its reckoning, and every deception meets its shadow. Stay vigilant, stay resilient, and stay tuned. Asterisk.